friends. There it is, breaking. April 26th, HWO warns of biological risk after Sudan fighters seize lab. All right, friends, are we together? Why? There's war going on. Huge biological risk as Sudan fighters seize disease laboratory. Don't you forget that, my friends. Next, there it is, friends. All right, Sudan fighting brings huge biological risk as lab holding samples of deadly diseases occupied. It says, my friends, fighters have occupied a national public laboratory in Sudan, holding samples of diseases including polio and measles, creating an extremely dangerous situation. The fighters kicked out all the technicians from the lab, which is completely under the control of one of the fighting parties as a military base. There is a huge biological risk associated with the occupation of the Central Public Health Laboratories. Beloved, is this something or nothing? That's my question. Is this something or is it nothing? Take a listen. A few moments.
In addition to the casualties, I have received a phone call yesterday, unconfirmed this day, from the head of the Central Public Health Lab. It is occupied by one of the fighting parties, and they kicked out all the technicians from the lab. So now it is completely under the control of one of the fighting parties as a military base. And that is extremely dangerous because we have polio isolates in the lab, we have measles isolates on the lab, we have cholera isolates in the lab. So there is a huge biological risk associated with the occupation of the Central Public Health Lab in Khartoum by one of the fighting parties. I spoke about casualties, but really psychological trauma and mental health is extremely important. And we should not forget the public health risk associated with this fighting, because no water supply, no electricity, so definitely there is a high risk of cholera, and Khartoum itself was suffering or was witnessing the first ever dengue outbreak. Malaria is high in all the states of Sudan. Immunization now is zero, and we have outbreaks of measles in multiple states. So with the cessation of all response activities, the public health events and outbreaks which may not be reported will be also very high. So my expectation, unfortunately...
All right, friends, enough. Do you realize, besides the diseases that are in the laboratories, the polio, the measles, he's also referring to other diseases in the land of Sudan, and how the vaccination, the immunization is zero, low, zero. Something or nothing? It's my question. Now, these individuals will not take these diseases and carry them to their various places of destination. My friends, is the Hegelian dialectic at work? Listen to this, my friends.
Mr. Secretary, if I could just read one other thing to you that crossed the wires this morning that caught our attention. This is a warning from Dr. Nima Saeed Abid. She's Sudan's WHO representative, and she said, here is a main concern: no accessibility to the lab technicians to go to the lab and safely contain the biological material and substances available. She's saying there is a high biohazard risk, and we've been through this. I'm not saying that there's COVID or a leak or anything like that, but that is a huge concern if they can't keep control of that.
Dana, it is. I saw that statement earlier today, too. This is true in many parts of the world. This global effort to contain to operate these high security labs in a safe way is something that the world has to take on, and a massive failure of her very organization at the WHO. As for the closure of...
Do you see it, my friends? So again, just for emphasis, what is the WHO, the UN, reporting that are in this laboratory? Notice here, friends, they tell us measles, polio, as well as cholera. My friends, is the WHO, the UN, the WEF, poultry, are they now sowing the seeds for the next pandemic? Remember, listen to me. Remember, during the C-19 pandemic, the height of it, they told us it was simply a lab outbreak, right? Okay. That brought on the pandemic. March 2020, 3/11, 3/11, like 9/11, 3/11. And here is all of a sudden fighters taking over a laboratory with various diseases. Are you telling me that Sudan is filled with all these laboratories in Sudan? Out of all the buildings, fighters could hijack, seize, take over. They chose a laboratory? Come on, friends. I'm so glad that's safe to change these viruses and make them super viruses. Beloved, I believe the stage is being set. Watch this. Listen. We are told in the book Great Controversy, listen attentively, my friends, listen attentively, that Satan works for the elements also to garner his harvest of unprepared souls. He has studied the secrets of the laboratories of nature. Yes, when he was suffered, allowed to afflict Job, how quickly flocks, herds, servants, houses, children were swept away, one trouble succeeding another as in a moment. I'm going to come back to that statement, my friends. For the Bible tells us the experience of Job is an end-time experience. It's going to be repeated. Clip 3.
Where you can take a pathogen into a laboratory and change it, then no longer does the species barrier really define the event in humans. It can actually come. And I do believe the next pandemic, and we're going to have another pandemic, and I think it's going to be the great pandemic. I consider COVID a minor pandemic. The great.
What could be worse than the pestilence 19? And not just the pestilence 19, but the draconian policies that were associated with it. Imagine what's coming next. We are told, my friends, while they appear to be great benefactors, great physicians, great philanthropists, that is, people looking to man, government to solve their ills, looking to the government and become government paupers. That's it, my friends. What context he made that statement? In what context? Pestilences? You mean a food crisis?
This is concerning for many reasons. If we thought that the pandemic was a reason for government to overreach, if we thought that that was going to be a crisis, imagine what it would be like if we ran out of food, if we have food shortages. When you realize that we had people panicking over toilet paper, imagine what they'll do when they panic when our cupboards are bare.
When cupboards are bare and can't find paper to wipe their rump and their rear, we're told what's going to happen when people become sick, severely ill, and begin to drop like flies, the colloquial saying. And we're told from Mr. Antichrist, expect greater omens. You know why they can say that? Because they're the ones who create the crises that they claim that they are predicting. Yes, friends. Yes. Don't believe them. Listen to this.
It's going to be the great pandemic. I consider COVID a minor pandemic. The great pandemic is going to come, and normally it would come from spillover. It's going to be bird flu that learns how to transmit to humans and then go human to human. But I think the species barriers are very real, but it's much more probable that it will happen because of gain-of-function research in a laboratory and then escape, and then we're going to have a pandemic with flu, which will be much more brutal to the world than COVID was.
It's going to be in the laboratory. It's going to escape from the laboratory. Yes, and then it's going to be what? Much more brutal. That is, people looking to man, government to solve their ills, looking to the government and become government paupers. That's it, my friends. What context he made that statement? In what context? Pestilences? You mean a food crisis?
This is concerning for many reasons. If we thought that the pandemic was a reason for government to overreach, if we thought that that was going to be a crisis, imagine what it would be like if we ran out of food, if we have food shortages. When you realize that we had people panicking over toilet paper, imagine what they'll do when they panic when our cupboards are bare.